Alright, if this video is posted, that means I'm out of YouTube jail. They flagged some content from the documentary me shooting up, and they said that, explicit narcotic use, which is kind of hypocritical because more established channels like Vice, they can show people doing drugs all day long, but I don't have as much clout as those entities, so they want to take it down. And I think this is going to play into a larger freedom of speech issue with YouTube in the years to come, because it's not right. And they demonetized a lot of my videos, but it's okay. I started a GoFundMe account. I put a $10,000 goal, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to use that money to get better production value. I know a lot of celebrities. I know a lot of infamous drug dealers like Boston George, Freeway Ricky Ross, people like that, and then a lot of actors, writers that I can get on the show. So I'll leave the link for the GoFundMe in the bio. And I got multiple offers. The last video was talking about how we needed 50,000 more to complete the documentary, and instead of going to one investor, we already raised over 100,000 from people that actually put equity into films. Now I'm trying to get smaller investments from people that want to get into the film industry. Remember, this is going to be written by Jim Oles, the screenwriter of Fight Club, narrated by Nick Stahl, star Terminator 3, Bully, Sin City. So it's a legit project. It's a good way to get your foot in the door, and I got multiple offers. The very first person that actually signed a contract and sent money is a guy named Hunter Urbach, and I'm really appreciative of that. Hunter, welcome to the team. We'll be going to France in the spring. We'll be going to all the premieres and all the different screenings, and I'm just completely flattered that I connected with strangers on YouTube and that people want to contribute to this film. All the stories I tell, we have a lot of footage to back it up. I think it's going to be a special project. So there's the GoFundMe if you want to do a smaller contribution to get the channel going. I think I'm going to develop it into a podcast. And then there's bigger investment opportunities, $5,000 minimum for 1% of the proceeds of the documentary, which will be premiering next spring. If you're interested, information in the link in the bio. So, on to the story. This is Juvenile Delinquency Part 2. So, on the last video that I posted about, some of my teenage delinquency, I'd been set up by my parents, and I woke up the next day and there were these two burly guys with clipboards, and they woke me up, and I was hungover because my dad had got me a 30-pack of beer the night before, so it was kind of like a contrived effort to put my guard down, and it worked. I woke up groggy and I see these two guys, and remember, my friends in Santa Barbara had been getting sent away like domino pieces. One after another, people were getting sent to these programs. It's not like I knew what these programs even consisted of. It's just one day they were with us, the next day, they're sent away, and their parents tell us they don't know when they're coming back. So it was happening to a lot of my friends, and so I instantly knew that this was happening to me. And they said, "Come on, Ryan, it's time to go." And I said, "Well, where are we going?" And these guys told me that I was going to snowboarding camp, but I knew better than that. So I had to come up with kind of a split-second strategy to try to finagle my way out of this. And what I did is I asked one of them if I could use the restroom. I said I had to take a shit. They said, "That's fine. We're going to put one of our feet in the door just to make sure that you don't try to jump out of a window or anything." I said, "That's fine." Definitely not going to snowboarding camp. That was pretty much confirmed with him saying that. But so I go in the bathroom, I sit on the toilet, and there's a small window. It's a square. It's probably about that big. And I had snuck in, on nights that I was out at a party when I was grounded, I'd snuck into that bathroom. So I knew it was possible to get out. And so I'm sitting on the toilet and I'm flushing it to make it sound like I'm actually using the toilet. And at the opportune time, I spring up, I open the window, and I try to dive out. But they had heard me. They run in, they grab me by my legs, and they end up zip tying me. They zip tie my hands behind my back, just like handcuffs, but with a zip tie. And my parents weren't there at the time. I think that they're instructed when they're doing this sort of extraction for them not to be there, so that, you know, I can't play on their emotions and try to elicit some sort of sympathy from my parents. So they bring me out to this car. They put me in the back seat, put the child safety lock on, they unzip tie me, there's no way for me to get out, and we don't speak. We just get in the car and we drive down to Los Angeles from Santa Barbara. So we go to LAX, it's about an hour and a half drive from Santa Barbara. And when we get there, they say, hey, if you can be good, we'll let you smoke one of your cigarettes. And so I just, you know, at this point, I had a defeatist attitude. I could try to run at the airport, and I considered that briefly, but I kind of just surrendered to it. So they let me smoke a cigarette, and they put me on a plane without any sort of escort, just by myself. So they made sure I got on the plane. I had no idea where I was even going. When I got on the plane, I asked people, I said, where are we going? They said, we're going to Boise, Idaho. So, you know, that whole plane ride, I was just kind of quiet, introspective, thinking about my predicament, you know, and I mean, this would be the first of many, many, many predicaments in my life, but this was the first time that I kind of realized, you know, the seriousness of the stuff I was doing. Up until this point, the idea of consequence was pretty abstract. Now I'm on a plane going to the unknown, and I have no idea where I'm going. So we land in Boise, and there's this big overweight guy. He's wearing like military fatigue poncho. He has a sign that says Ryan, and I walk up to him and I go, I'm Ryan. And he goes, okay man, we're taking you to the camp. Now, I had no idea what that even meant, so I just said okay. So he brings me to this van, same kind of druggy buggy that you'd see at any rehab. I'm sure a lot of you guys have been to rehab just based on the comments. One of those generic white vans that they shuttle you around in rehabs in. So I get in the van, and there's 5 or 6 girls in there. And I think there was one guy. So I think altogether there was like 8 of us. And right when I get in there, I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they had all told me similar stories. Hey, we pretty much got kidnapped. Essentially, people came this morning, grabbed us, and brought us here, and they had no idea where we were going. Some of them were crying, and I started talking to one of the girls, who ended up being the girl from the Albuquerque, New Mexico story. But I was 15 back then. She had colored hair, and so her and I talked, you know, the majority of the trip. And the other guy that was there was really upset that, well, we were all upset, but he was the most vocal about it. So we get progressively more into like a desolate desert area outside of Boise, Idaho. And we finally get up to this, like, it's maybe like a little wooden, like a shack. And so we all pull up to the shack, and there's other guys now, same military fatigues as the guy that picked us up at the airport. And they get us out of the van, and they explain to us that we're at a place called Seuss. And what Seuss is, they explain, is a wilderness program that's aimed at troubled adolescents. And they're telling us it's not going to be a comfortable journey, but by the end we should have insights, and we should be better people, and we're here because of our mistakes, and they're here to correct those mistakes. None of us are talking. We're all just stoic, looking at them, pissed off, probably all in our own minds. I know I was. And so they start taking us one by one into the shack. I'm the very last person to go. So each person goes into the shack, they come out, and they're dressed in these, it's almost like a military surplus outfit. Like, I think it was Russian military, so it was like, you know, green, it was like these green sweaters and green pants, and they gave each of these kids backpacks. So they're basically dressing us in to go to this program. So they get to me, and one by one, as these kids were dressing out, they would take them in the van to somewhere else. So I was literally the last kid there. And they tell me that they're going to need to strip search me, and then I need to squat and cough and show them my asshole. And, you know, I've been to prison several times now, and that's par for the course. But at 15, there's no way I'm showing an adult my asshole. So I just refuse it. I go, there's no way I'm doing that. So now there's like, you know, 5 of these staff guys all in their little military outfits, and they're kind of bullying me. You know, if we have to rip your clothes off of you, we will. And I'm talking shit to them, and the van pulls back up from the last person that they were bringing to wherever they were bringing them. And so I see the van pull up, and I see this rock. It's about this big on the ground. And I run, and they're chasing me. So I run away from the staff, and I grab this rock, and I throw it at the back window of the van, and it just shatters. As soon as I do that, I get tackled. And sure enough, they literally drag me to the back of the shack, take my pants off, take my shirt off. I'm like butt naked. Like, these guys are holding me down, ripping my clothes off. I never did squat and cough, but they just kind of, you know, searched me, like, you know, looked at me, and then gave me my dress out clothes. So I got into these military clothes, so upset. Like, that whole experience was so humiliating, and they were, of course, embittered about the shattered van window. So they put me in the back of the van. They give me this heavy backpack. It's probably 80 pounds. And they bring me further into the desert. And, you know, I'm hearing the winds all bad, especially with the shattered window. And I'm kind of happy that at least I could do that. They bring me into the middle of nowhere. There's just this little kind of mountain ahead of me. But besides that, it's just panoramic desert. And they just drop me off. And I'm like, hey, what are you're just leaving me alone in the desert? And they don't say a word. These guys are mad that I broke the window, and I'm just sitting there alone with this backpack. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, of all the things I've done in my life, this is by far the most genuine feeling of regret for everything I had done. Just in that, this, like, in one flash instant, I had this moment of awareness, and I realized that I had done all this to myself, just being alone like that. And they left me like that for about an hour, and then a group of kids comes up to me with staff. They came from the mountain. They're all wearing packs, and I recognized them from the van. And now there's a staff member explaining to me that basically they're going to teach us how to make fire out of sticks. They're going to teach us how to catch rodents, make traps, how to catch food, how to make the bow drill set. That's how you make the fire. I'll get into all that. And I'm just not having it. I'm so upset. And these other kids are juvenile delinquents too. So as soon as I start being subversive and talking shit to the staff, everyone kind of chimes in too. Yeah, fuck you. Yeah, he's right. We don't need to do anything you say. So I'm sort of orchestrating this group of disgruntled teenagers. And that night, we don't leave. We're like in that area, like we're protesting them because they're wanting us to hike. Like, we just got off an airplane. This girl, the girl from Albuquerque, she's from New Mexico. There's other kids from Utah. There's kids from Vegas. You know, people from all over the country. We just got off a plane and they expect us to go hiking, and we're not going to have it. So they make a camp right there. And they make a fire with the bow drill set. So that's like, it looks like a bow and arrow. And you can make it with sticks. You can take like a certain bark apart from other trees and plants and make twine. So that makes like a string. You make it on this bow, and then you put the stick in the bow, and you get like another piece of wood. And you use it to make a hole, and then another hole. And what happens is, with the momentum, it makes heat, and you make this little, it looks like a bird nest, and as soon as it starts making heat, you blow the amber into this like nest, and it's called, I think it's called busting a flame or something. I don't know, this is so long ago. Busting a flame or something. So this guy was using the bow drill set, he blows on this nest, and it poofs into fire, and he uses that fire to start the campfire. Now, they gave us rice and lentils and granola and oatmeal. They had like these basic survival foods. They also gave us a can of peaches. And I don't know if it's true or not, but the staff was telling us around the campfire, now we've decompressed a bit, we're all just emotionally, physically drained, and they give us this can of peaches for the purpose of detoxing us. They're saying that this will detox us. Now, none of us are on serious drugs. I haven't even done cocaine at this point. I've just done hallucinogens, I've been smoking pot, drinking, having reckless sex, fist fights, getting expelled from schools. I was on the wrong path, but I wasn't a hardcore narcotic abuser yet. Neither were any of these other kids. They were like raver kids. One of them was a skinhead, but none of them were like into heroin or meth or any hard drug. So they told us that this can of peaches would detoxify us from all of whatever bad chemicals we had ingested, namely, nicotine, alcohol, some of the more benign substances. And they told us that, and again, I don't know if this is true, they told us that somebody from the band the United States of America, the Presidents of the United States of America, had been sent to this program. And that song, Millions of Peaches, I don't know if you know that song, Millions of Peaches, Peaches for Me, they say that that's about this program. I've Googled it. I can't find anything to substantiate those claims. But we're all just like eating these peaches, which make you have diarrhea if you eat a big can of peaches. And we have no toilet paper. They're telling us that we have to use leaves to wipe our asses. So we're out in nature. We all get diarrhea from the peaches. The peaches were like good because we were so like, depleted nutritionally just from that long day of travel with no food. So we all ate it, and one by one we're all kind of going off by ourselves and having diarrhea out in the middle of the wilderness. And they gave us sleeping bags, and they dug holes for each one of us, and then they would put the sleeping bag in the hole and kind of fill us with some dirt because it was so cold there. And it seemed bizarre, but you definitely embrace that warmth when it's so cold and you have nothing else. So we kind of get buried just lightly, just a little coating of dirt overneath the sleeping bags, which sucks if you have to take a piss in the middle of the night. But next morning we wake up, it's like 6 in the morning. Now, there's a kid named Andrew there, and he was the angry guy that I had met in the van the night before. And Andrew goes up to the top of that hill, that mountainous hill thing. And what he had done is he had sharpened the top to the peach can lid. He had folded it in half, and he had sharpened it against rocks and made it more serrated and sharp. And he's sitting there slitting his wrist the correct way, doing it like that. And he's going, I'd rather be dead than be at this place. And blood is just literally cascading down his arm. So like blood's just, pouring down his arm. And it really freaked me out. I mean, I'd seen people get beat up, but I'd never seen someone inflict that kind of harm on themselves. And I remember it made me queasy, made me want to vomit. And the staff is chasing him. He's running on this hill mountain thing, and blood's just leaking until he's lost so much blood that he passes out. They're getting on their microphone. They're saying code 3, which is, something that you'll hear a lot on walkie-talkies in these programs for troubled adolescents, which I frequent in. This is just my first one. Code 3, code 3. All of a sudden, a helicopter comes. They put this kid on a gurney, and they take him. Now, we had no idea what happened, but we were all traumatized by this event. And later that night, they told us that he died. I have no idea if that's true. It's been debated with people that I was at that program with for years. I don't know what his last name is. Andrew, if you're watching, I hope you're alive, man. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what they told us. And a lot of people I was there with have theorized that this was to scare us. But obviously we're all shaken up. and they had us start hiking, you know, that next day. And they said that it would be therapeutic to process it, to, you know, expend energy physically just to try to deal with this. And, you know, at that point, it really put things into perspective that, who knows, this kid may have killed himself. Whatever the case, it was a very traumatic experience. The first time I ever saw somebody slit their wrist, seen it in prison a few times, but I was 15 years old, and, you know, my mental faculty was still dictated a lot by naivety and by innocence, so it was just a really difficult thing to process. So we start hiking the next day, and we're doing 15-mile hikes every day with these 80-pound backpacks on. By the time we get to wherever our target camp area is, we're so exhausted. And they're giving us rice and lentils. At this point, they're teaching us how to do the bow drill set, like I explained. They're showing us how to do rodent traps so we can catch like field mice. And just the whole thing is so bizarre, completely cut off from our family. And it starts snowing, I think the second or third day that I'm there. So we're doing these hellacious hikes. I'm having periodic freakouts where we'll be hiking and I'll just take my pack off and throw it. I'm like, no, I refuse. What are you going to do if I don't keep hiking? And then like other people, yeah, fuck you. What are you going to do? So, you know, again, like I try to orchestrate these like opposition groups within the group of people we're with. I think it was like 10 people altogether, I want to say, maybe 9 after Andrew, they took Andrew away in the helicopter. But this became our daily life, and this went on for weeks. We would be hiking, one of us would have a freak out. We'd get to this campsite and we'd eat rice and lentils, or we'd have to boil water and sanitize water out of creeks, and we'd, you know, boil it in that peach can that we had from the first day. They took all of our peach can lids after Andrew did that. And I guess the whole theory behind this program was that, you know, they take everything away from you materially because they say that, like, we're spoiled, we've been dependent on our parents, and now we have to learn how to fend for ourselves, and nature's like the perfect microcosm metaphor for life. If you can survive in nature, you can apply those principles to anything in life. So this goes on for weeks, right? A month. We're all getting closer. We're having these process groups at night. We're getting less and less defiant. And they have us do a solo, I think 30 days in. 3 days where we're not with the rest of the group. We're just in isolation for 3 days. And I can say that I did get some benefit from that. I could really reflect. That was really intense introspection at that point. And then another 2 weeks goes by. So we've been out there about 45, 50 days. And they never tell us when we're leaving this place. Every day is the exact same. We get up at 5 in the morning. We make a campfire. We make breakfast. We hike up in the mountains, you know, in the surrounding wilderness of Boise, Idaho. And then when we're physically exhausted and can't go anymore, we put our packs down, we make a campfire, we eat dinner, and, you know, they cover us in snow now. Now that it's snowing, they cover us, the sleeping bags in snow. So one day, and we're always asking, well, when are we getting out of here? How long are we going to be in this program? And they never tell us an answer. So one day, they take us to a cabin. Right? We haven't been sleeping in cabins. This is all outdoors. Take us to a cabin, and they have soda and they have birthday cake. It was somebody's birthday or something. And they're like, okay, guys, it's somebody's birthday today. We're going to celebrate, and we have mail from all of your families about when you guys are getting out. So all of us are so excited, and we were sitting Indian style in the circle, and I remember I was probably like third to last, so it went in like, you know, it went in order, it went in sequential, like, you know, rotation. So the first person that gets a letter is this kid, and he starts reading, he's all excited to get to hear from his parents, and about halfway through the letter, he just starts crying. It's just like pulling in his hair. He's like, are you kidding me? We're like, what? They're like, dude, they're sending me away for 3 more years until I'm 18. We're like, what? Next person reads the letter. Exact same thing. They're sending this person away for 2 to 3 years. the girl Liz from Albuquerque, New Mexico, she's going to an all-girls program in, like, I think in Nevada or something. We finally get to mine. My parents were like, Ryan, we're so glad that you're making therapeutic strides forward, but we're sending you to a lockdown treatment center in Utah, possibly until you're 18. Now that's 3 years. That's a prison sentence. And I'm sure I cried. I don't remember, but I'm sure I'm an emotional guy. I'm sure I cried, you know. As years go on, you get more jaded and more calloused. You lose that ability. But back then, it was raw emotion, and I could still do that, so I'm sure that I did. And so all of our positivity, all of our optimism was just crushed in that instant. And we continued for another couple weeks, not knowing exactly when we were getting out, but the staff kept telling us it was closer and closer. One day we go on a hike and we go down this huge mountain. It's probably like, you know, I don't know, 12-mile hike that day. And we're going down. And we get to the main campground and they say, okay guys, you finished. They gave us like a nice dinner. They let us sleep in actual beds. The next day we took showers. They let us take, like, you know, it was separate obviously, but the guys would be in the group showers and girls were in different group showers, and like these thick black residue just kind of slid off our bodies, and like the entire drain was just resonated with filth. And we got to eat, you know, pancakes and eggs and bacon, and we had like a solid breakfast. And then they escorted us to the airport, and they put us all on different airplanes respectively. And they put me on an airplane. Speaking of an airplane, you can hear one going by. They put me on a plane to Utah. And my dad came and picked me up. I didn't know that I was going to see my dad. Came and picked me up, gave me a big hug, and he's like, hey, I'm really sorry. You're going to thank me when you're older. I'm trying to divert you from the path that you've chosen. You're going to this place called Aspen Ranch in Loa, Utah. It's about 3 hours, I think, north of Salt Lake. I could be wrong about that. And we drove, and I was just happy to see my dad. And I was mad, but I still was happy to see him. I mean, I'd seen that kid slit his wrist, and I had been exposed to some pretty traumatic stuff. That 3-day solo really put things into perspective for me, really made me think a lot. So we end up going up to this ranch in Utah, and it's classified as a residential treatment center. It's co-ed, guys and girls. And I asked my dad, how long am I going to be here? And he said, just like I said in the letter, it can be until you're 18, but it's all contingent on how well you do here. There's level systems and there's mobility. You can move up the level systems, and if you can be, if you can behave yourself, you can get out sooner. So, they do some sort of intake process, and they give me their uniform. It's like khaki pants and like a blue shirt that says Aspen Ranch. And for the first 2 weeks of Aspen Ranch, they put you in kind of like an orientation phase called Roundup. What Roundup is it's basically slave labor. You have to do manual labor all day. This is like on a ranch in Utah. It was a beautiful place. Huge dirt road led you into this place. Classic ranch. There was horses, and there's like this big main house where they serve the food. Then there's a separate building for the school. There's cabins where the females live, and there's like a dormitory where the guys live. And there's rope courses. And there's a lake, big hill that says AR, with like white rocks, and it looked like a decent place. As soon as I got into that work thing where we're having to dig holes and we're having to like put, fence posts, lay all the stuff down, I started getting really upset that I was in this situation. And where you're housed in Roundup is a place called Reflections. Now, if you're bad at this place, it's like going to the hole in prison. They put you in a place called Reflections. That's where all the worst kids go, and they give you hours. So say you say fuck you to the staff, 6 hours of Reflections, and you have to sit at this desk, and they give you these like arbitrary assignments. Do a 10-page essay on why the sky is blue, and they're just trying to antagonize you, and they keep pissing you off, and when you stop resisting and stop being oppositional, they let you out of this. So being in the orientation phase of this in Roundup, I'm living in reflection, so I'm with all the worst kids there. We're like huffing paint our first night there. I'm with kids from all over the country, and we're seeing all these kids sitting at this desk. Very bizarre, weird stuff. You know, it reminded me of like Pink Floyd's The Wall, like just this weird machine. You know, it was like the system there felt like a warehouse for bad kids. It was just a bizarre atmosphere. And the first 3 or 4 days that I'm there, vast majority of females there have been sexually abused. Most of the guys have been sexually abused too. So we're talking about very serious disorders, eating disorders, self-mutilators, which I'd never seen. I was exposed to pretty frequently at this place. And within the first 3 or 4 days, like I was saying, this girl got a pencil and she took the eraser, you know, it's like, has that metallic holder for the eraser. Took the eraser out. She was like doing this at her desk. No one saw her do it, but she bit down on the metallic part of the pencil and she sharpened it somehow. She was a cutter already, and she started cutting the muscle out of the inside of her arm right here, and she's just ripping her muscle apart. She's putting so much pressure on this thing, on this like the pencil metal that she had sharpened, that muscle starts oozing out of her arm, and it looks like it looks like tater tots with ketchup. It's the best way I can describe it. It's like this white goopy tater tot looking stuff, which is muscle leaking out of her arm. They get on the walkie-talkies, code 3, code 3. All these staff come, run, they restrain her. I forget what it's called. It's like a 3-point restraint. Utah is one of the very few states where they're allowed to actually use physical restraint on you. So that's one of the reasons that there's so many of these programs for troubled adolescents in Utah, because they're allowed to actually touch you. Other states they can't. And that was traumatizing too. So I saw this kid slit his wrist, and then I saw her. Then a couple days after that, some girl went into the bathroom in the main house. She was in there for a minute, and she comes out butt naked and just starts running. This like 16-year-old girl just starts running butt naked all over the program. And we're like right outside the main house doing our slave labor, and we just see this naked 16-year-old girl running full speed with all these staff behind her. I mean, this place was an absolute zoo. And, so I was in orientation for 2 weeks, very scared because there were so many just complete psychopaths at this place. Just really, really emotionally unstable people. We heard that there was a kid there that was there because he had sex with his neighbor's dog when he was supposed to be watching the dog, and they had to get the dog stitched together. There were kids there that were planning like school shootings, and somehow their plan got foiled, and instead of going to juvenile hall because they'd actually get court ordered to go to these kind of programs for troubled adolescents. So there were some very, very, very bizarre people there. So 2 weeks after Roundup, I get into what's called a team. That's your different housing bodies are called teams. It's almost like a unit in prison, but it's called teams. So instead of unit 1 in prison, this is team 1, team 2, and I was on team 2. And I go into this place. There's probably 20 kids living with me on team 2. It's a whole floor of this dormitory, and they give you these little rooms with like 6 people in each one. The picture I'm going to use for the thumbnail is a picture of me and this other guy that I'm about to talk about, and that's a picture of us in one of our rooms. So the very first night, they took me over to team 2 at like maybe 9 in the morning. 9 at night. It was nighttime. It's like 9 at night, and I'm getting settled in. They gave me what little clothing my parents had sent, and I'm putting them in my drawers. And people were already asleep at night. It was probably like 10. I think it's about 10. It had just been lights out, and people were asleep. Now, there's different levels of this program. So there's people that are, at the top level, get more. Every level you go up, you get more privileges. So if you're a rider, which is like the 4th level, you get to have late nights on Friday and Saturday night. And I think it was a Friday night. And So a few kids are still kind of, you know, doing whatever they want, playing games in like the game room, watching TV, watching movies. And I'm sitting there, everyone's asleep in my room. Probably, I want to say it's 10. And I'm sitting there, and I look out the window, there's bars on the window, and I just see this guy, my age, maybe a couple years older than me, and he's smoking a cigarette. And I look out the window, and he's just smoking it, looking at me, smiling. Almost tauntingly, like, you know. And, I kind of look at him, and I just don't really know what to think of it. So I keep putting my stuff away, trying to be quiet because other people are sleeping, and I go lay in my bed. Now this guy, his name's Kyle O'Block, still friends with him on Facebook. He's the guy in the picture that I'm using as the thumbnail. He just sent me that picture the other day. Kyle ended up being one of my great friends, but he comes up to me and he just puts his arms around me and starts strangling. He puts his hands around my neck and starts strangling me. He's like, "Listen to me, you little bitch. If you tell anyone that I smoked a cigarette, I'll fucking kill you. Do you understand me? I will kill you." And I'm just like, he was 17, I was 15, he was a lot bigger than me, and I'm just sitting there like, I had no idea what to do. I've been in plenty of fights at this point, but I was like, totally out of my element. He's yelling at me, strangling me, other kids are getting up, they're looking freaked out, and I'm just like, all right, I won't tell anyone. He's like, all right. So, that was like my first night on the team. This guy strangled me, I saw him smoking a cigarette, so I knew that there was stuff going on at this place that I was soon to learn about. There's a whole underground of these programs, and I got very involved with them, and all sorts of really crazy stuff happened. We will continue that in Juvenile Delinquency Part 3. Thank you so much for watching.